we'll use Klee. We're gonna use Klee's kit as an example. Alright, so beginning with flowers, all flowers in Genshin Impact, their main purpose is to give your character extra health. In the upper right where you see it says Witch's Flower of Blaze, and then it says HP 4780. As I'm scrolling through my different artifacts, you notice that the 4780 remains the same, but the things underneath them are called substats. Those are the only things that are changing that as I scroll through my different artifacts. This is because all flowers in Genshin Impact can only be HP. And then the substats are the only things that will change. This is the same for feathers. All feathers, their sole purpose is to provide up to 300 plus 311 max base attack to your characters, and the only things that will change are the substats. Flat attack just means like you see how it says attack 311. My Klee has 2000 attack, right? If I were to remove that, girl, if you don't go back, if I were to remove that, take it off, it jumps to 1700. I'm making this distinction because we're going to be talking about the Sands of Aeon next, or the Hourglass, and you should always be looking for attack percentage when you're farming for your Hourglass artifacts. Attack percentage is very important because, as we saw before, my Klee had 2000 base attack. If I were to take off this 46.6% attack percentage, she would drop drastically to 1400 attack, which is not good. Well, depending on what level you are, it could probably be really good, but we get that back to her. Now, hourglasses come in several different main stats compared to HP and feathers. They come in energy recharge, defense, HP percent, and elemental mastery. If you need me to explain what those other substats are, then I will a little later. But almost always when you are searching for an hourglass, you want to use attack percentage. With characters with exception to characters like Zhongli, Noelle, Barbara, and Bennett, their character kits are a little different, and if you need help building them, then I'll help you with that too. Moving on to the goblet. The goblet is pretty self-explanatory. You always almost want to have the correct elemental goblet with the element of the character. So if Klee's pyro damage bonus goblet, I'll show you that a goblet for every element exists: electro, cryo, hydro, animo, etc. And an exception, physical damage, because a lot of people care about white numbers a little bit more. Like my Kaya, I use a physical damage bonus on him because I don't really care about cryo damage for him specifically. It's up to you, but I will just say you do not want to use a physical damage bonus on a character like Klee, because she doesn't produce white damage numbers. She uses a catalyst, so it's always going to be elemental magic that you see with her. Moving on to the hat, which is the circlet that sometimes people call it. You almost always want it to be crit damage or crit rate. How you choose between those is by using what you have, and using you always want to have the opposite of the weapon. So what I mean by that is, since I have a crit damage hat on Klee, her catalyst has the base stat of crit rate. So you want to alternate. You don't want to have a crit damage hat on Klee and then a crit damage book. It's just too much crit damage and then probably not enough crit rate. The difference between crit rate and crit damage is, well, my Klee has 2000 base attack. I get to see that 168% of the time. Well, I get to produce. I'm able to produce 168% of that. So my crit rate is how often I'm able to produce 168% of that 2000 base damage. Crit rate and crit damage is really important because sometimes you'll notice that you do a really big damage number. That's called a crit. A crit is basically when you do a damage number that's higher than usual because of your crit damage. As I scroll down, you see that she has 90% pyro damage bonus. That's because of the pyro damage goblet that I put on her. So I hope that explains it. If you have any more questions, I will be happy to answer them.